Sometimes it's nice to know the why before we know the what. So today we're going to take a look at this pretty cool revolver. This is the Smith and Wesson 581. You don't see them that often. Smith and Wesson, frankly, didn't make that many for reasons we'll discuss in a minute. But before we get into what this is, I just want to identify a part of the revolver and talk about it for a minute. So right here, this is known as the forcing cone. It's part of the barrel. And when the bullet leaves the cylinder and goes into the barrel, what happens is some gases, hot gases, and residue will escape with the bullet. And in the Smith and Wesson K frames, a smaller framed revolver, what Smith and Wesson was finding is that because they had to flatten a spot on the bottom here to accommodate the yoke, they were finding that this forcing cone was cracking with certain .357 ammunition. And they tried a couple of different things, and finally someone said, well, let's experiment. Let's make a larger framed revolver. They have a much bigger framed revolver known as the N frame. It's the frame that you see for the 44 Magnum. It's the frame they originally used for the registered Magnum and the Model 27 and a few others. Nowadays, you can get the N frame revolver in .357 that'll hold 8 rounds. That's how big it is. That's how sturdy it is. But the buying public, and most notably law enforcement, wanted a revolver that was smaller, lighter weight, and easier to carry, but still had the .357 ammunition. And that was the K-frame in the form of the Smith and Wesson Model 19, and in stainless steel it was the 66. Great revolvers, but they did not have the durability that Smith and Wesson and the end users had hoped for. The answer was to make the L frame, and that's what this is. Let's take a deeper look at it. So it's a slightly larger frame than the Ks, like the Model 19s and a few of the others. And it was almost an immediate hit. They made this in the early 80s in the what was known as the 586 and the 686, both of which were extremely popular. They're still in production, and they have the adjustable sights, which everybody wanted. They made some, like this one, with fixed rear sights. It's basically a gutter sight like you'd find on a small J-frame or some other types of guns. The idea being that the fixed sight might be a little more durable, less prone to breakage or coming out of adjustment, and it was basically their idea of a hard-use .357 revolver, and that's probably the case. Not a lot of people wanted the fixed sight, so they stopped making them. They don't make them anymore, and they're kind of hard to find. I came across this one, and frankly, it was a bit of a bargain and couldn't pass it up. When the original models were made, one of the things Smith and Wesson did was they kind of copied the Colt Python barrel with the full underlug. I don't think there was any conflict or controversy about that. They simply said, hey, that's a pretty good way to go. Add some weight to the front of the gun, makes it a little bit stronger. And that's what they did. They made a few changes. One of the things they did was they sort of rounded this part of the underlug to make reholstering a little bit easier. And they didn't put in the vent ribs. But other than that, it's kind of a similar concept. Let's shoot this and see how it goes. Love loading from the pocket. All right, we're about 15 yards out. Let's see what we got. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So not a bad shot group. Looks to be shooting slightly to the left. That could be me. Let's shoot into the shot group, see how it goes. All right, so that's 12 rounds at about 8 yards. Not a bad shock group. A little bit of practice, I might get better.